Secrecy is no longer available for E. Secrecy. Let's start off by saying Barak Atah Yahweh, Ba'Hashem Yahushai, Ba'Hashem Ruchak Kudash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is E is made bare and cannot hide himself anymore. And pretty much, these devils for a long time, counted on them being able to hide themselves, but they can't do that anymore. Matter of fact, they can't do that anymore. The secrets are up. The enchantments are not working anymore. Just bear with me. So they cannot hide themselves anymore. Just bear with me 1 second. Just looking for this particular quote. Okay. So I'm going to get this real quick, and then we can get started. All right. So pretty much Esau's, at one point they relied on secrecy, which they can no longer hide behind anymore, because the truth is out and the Lord has exposed these devils. And you also have individuals out there that are truthers, that are not Israelites. Some of them may be, some of them are not, that are also on Esau's ass, especially, the international banking elite, these smart hats. So I typed in, what does it mean when someone is made bare? When someone is made bare, it means they have been stripped of covering. Now this is dealing with something physical, like bare naked, but also, you can also become bare or naked to the world, like the scriptures speak about shameful spewing on thy glory, but you're going to get that. But let me just hold on to that since it came to mind. All right. So it says, when someone is made bare, it means they have been stripped of covering, protection, or possessions, leaving them exposed, vulnerable, or defenseless. The phrase often refers to being physically unclothed, but it is frequently used metaphorically to describe a state of destitution or emotional transparency. All right. So pretty much they've been made transparent. Yep. This is what we got here too. So right here it says, while made bare often emphasizes the result of being stripped, naked, empty, the related phrase laid bare usually emphasizes the process of exposure, such as revealing secrets, uncovering truths, or making something public. Right, because for a long time, these international banking families relied on, secrecy. And that has been their biggest thing. This is why back in the days, individuals that would expose them, they would take them out quickly. But now that there's so much information going out and so many individuals exposing them, they can't, go on that rant, or that they can't go on that so-called deleting spree as they used to, because there's too many people out there that are bringing out truths and learning about them and exposing them. All right, now before I go into the scripture, I brought this out before. You could barely see this. Let me see if I can find a better one. Let's see. Let me see if this one is a little better. Yeah, this one's a lot better. Okay, so it says, we are grateful. This is David Rockefeller, and this is the actual quote. It says, we are grateful to the Washington Post, the New York Times, Time Magazine, and other great publications whose directors have attended our meetings and respected their promises of discretion for almost 40 years. So for 40 years, almost 40 years, these different magazines, which are owned by them anyway, were allowed to attend these meetings under, the strict, agreement that they could not reveal anything that's being brought out, in these meetings. Okay. It says it would have been impossible for us to develop our plan for the world if we had been subjected to the lights of publicity during those years. And this is why if anyone was coming out too strong on them back then, what would they do? Either they'll make them look crazy, they'll lock them up in a loony bin, or they'll delete them. Right? It says, but the world is more sophisticated and prepared to march towards a world government. Why? Because they've been the world has pretty much been, conditioned to accept this so-called new world order, to accept the infrastructure that's set up, because through years of constant conditioning, years of constant repetition, years of constant inculcation, which the word inculcation simply means to impress upon the mind by constant repetition. So by constantly repeating these things and putting it, a little bit here and a little bit there, a little subliminal point here, a little subliminal point there, bringing it out in movies, bringing it out, in these different, advertisements, billboards, commercials, so on and so forth. Having individuals saying certain things has conditioned the minds of the people to accept the current government. Because back in the days, in the early days of so-called America, right, the patriots back then would have been raised up against, the government, to remove from power, this corrupt, tyrannical, these corrupt, tyrannical individuals, as they've done in the past. But the thing is that now they have more superior firepower. They have, they have control of the American government. They have control of the American media. They have control, of the American military. So now it's not as easy as it used to be before, because according to the Constitution, they do have a right to, to step to the government if they become corrupt. But that's not going to happen now that Amalek is involved. Now that Amalek, is in the power seat. They're not going to be able to do it. All right. So it says the supranational sovereignty of an intellectual elite and world bankers is surely preferable to the national auto-determination practice in past centuries. So basically, the supranational, meaning all nations together, sovereignty, meaning one world government, supranational, meaning everyone put together, of an intellectual elite and world bankers. So them controlling everything, that oligarchy of evil, as my man, what's his name? Anthony J. Hilder said, to them it's preferable, right? is surely preferable to the national auto-determination practice in past centuries. So basically, each individual country and individual people controlling themselves. See, they couldn't say this back then. Why? Because, you know, they didn't have their infrastructure in place. But now that they have the infrastructure in place, there's a lot of stuff leaking out because this is the Lord's way of exposing them before he judges them. You know, and now that they're being exposed, you know, they're trying to cover their tracks. And this, you know, this lesson came through inspiration of a video I was watching a little while, actually just before I started this video. You know, the up and coming elder, you know, Aisha Yar, the head of one of the North Carolina camps. You know, I was watching his video, which I didn't realize. I just threw the video on, and he said he was inspired to do that video by a lesson that I did. I was like, oh wow, you know. So pretty much it like also prompted me to do another lesson based off of this because I was looking for a lesson. You know, the Elder Kanak and myself, he's got me on a new protocol for this week. You know, so it's, you know, so it, you know, like my schedule is, you know, changed. So, you know, I was trying to get, you know, a lot of stuff done, you know, plus I was cooking these delicious or making these delicious, you know, black eyed peas burgers, you know, my recipe that I got from this Jake online. And I pretty much, you know, he made black bean burgers. I make black eyed peas burgers. Sometimes I make black eyed peas and black bean burgers mixed together, you know, but I used his recipe, but then I added my own stuff to it, you know. So, you know, I was pretty busy this morning making my buckwheat porridge and, you know, just different stuff. So, you know, just meditating and waiting for the spirit to hit me, you know, and then doing the protocol itself, you know, until the spirit hit me. So I, you know, as the spirit hit me to do this lesson, I cut my protocol short just to be able to do this lesson, you know. So pretty much, you know, this is why I'm doing this lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shemal Shai, inspired by that brother's video. You know, so pretty much Esau for a long time depended on secrecy, you know, but now there's too many avenues of truth going out in this informational highway called the internet. This is why Jay Rockefeller said that the internet should have never been exposed. Let's see. Did Jay Rockefeller say but I bet you they're gonna say he never said that the internet, and we have videos that he said that the internet should never have been created, something along those lines. Based on available records, it is false. See, that former U.S. Senator Jay Rockefeller, John D. Rockefeller IV, stated the internet should never have been created. But we have videos that he did say that. Now, I don't know if any of you brothers out there have those records, you know, have the video where he actually said that the internet should never have been invented, you know. But now when you fact checking it, they're saying, nope, that didn't happen. Why? Because the small hats are in control of Google. They're in control pretty much of all these different platforms. This is why you'll type in some information back in the days, you'll find all the information you needed. But now when you do that, they redirect you. Why do they redirect you? Because they don't want people to find the truth. So this is why a person will type this in and get this answer, and I say, well, no, he didn't say it, so it's not true. But we know better because we've heard him say it. We actually had video. I'm not sure if I have any videos on my computer, my PC. Lord as well, if I get a chance, I remember, I'll check through it, because Elder Yashwamba had ordered me a, you know, had him order me a computer table and a computer chair, you know. So Lord's will, it'll be here, I believe, tomorrow, and that way, you know, I could set that up and get everything. I got it set up, but it's just, you know, I just haven't been able to really get on the computer like that. And if I find that video, I'm gonna see if I could send it to a brother. Maybe they could upload it, you know, to a, you know, maybe convert it or whatever. I don't know. We'll figure it out. I may have it. I may have a copy of it, you know. So he did say this, and those of you brothers that are out there that have been around for a while, I'm sure you remember when he said it. And I believe also Joe Lieberman also said something similar to that. Now, why would they say such things? Well, because the internet has been their own undoing, and what's exposing them. It's what's making them bare. So in Jeremiah 49, I'm gonna go straight to the point, and then may jump up a little bit, depending on how the spirit works. But Jeremiah 49:10, it says, "But I have made Esau bare, I have uncovered his secret places, and he shall not be able to hide himself. His seed is spoiled, and his brethren and his neighbors, and he is not." Now, technically, this is really dealing with Esau being destroyed. Their land, here be in America. America is in modern day Edom, being totally destroyed, wiped out, but there's nowhere to hide. But we also use it as far as Esau being exposed. That's why another part, I'm not sure if it's verse 9. If great gatherers came to thee, would they not leave some gleaning grapes? If thieves by night they will destroy till they have enough. So basically, the Lord's saying that if you have grape gatherers, they're not going to glean everything. They're only going to get so much and leave the rest. If you have thieves, they're going to come and take just so much that they can carry, but they're not going to take everything. But when the Lord comes back to destroy Esau, he's going to strip him bare of everything. This is really what this is talking about. But it also applies to him being exposed, as far as, all of the underhanded shit that he's doing, because these are talking points that we could use to marry it with the scriptures to show the wickedness of Esau. Because when we look up this word, well, first of all, let me show you that. Bibles, NLT. "But I will strip bare the land of Edom," which is really here in America, not talking about the ancient land of Edom, "and there will be no place left to hide. Its children, its brothers, and its neighbors will all be destroyed, and Edom itself will be no more." So it's really talking about the land, but it's also talking about the secrets of Esau being exposed. Now, when we go to the word bear, the word is cheshap, right? A primitive root, to strip off, lay bare, make bare, draw out. To strip off, to strip, lay bare, to draw water, skim, take from the surface. When we come down here, it says a primitive root, to strip off. An example, generally to make naked, for exertion or in disgrace. See? So also to strip somebody and make them naked to be a disgrace, because when you would strip somebody naked in public, that was disgraceful. Like in the movie, those of you brothers that seen the movie In Too Deep, that dude, was it Frisco? Said, "Yo, God, man, why you make a nigga strip, naked before you do, and he said, any motherfucker could take a beating. I'm just merely paraphrasing. Any motherfucker could take a beating, but you humiliate his ass, he'll never forget that shit. Some psychological ill shit. So pretty much when you're stripped naked in front of the public, it's a shameful thing. So Esau is being made bare in the front of everyone. His skirt is being pulled up. Here it is. He got long hair. He got lipstick on. He got fake boobies, And then when the skirt's lifted up, you see that it's an actual man and not a woman. You see? So the Lord is making him bare also in that fashion before he brings a judgment to make him bare the land completely bare. No place, nowhere to run to, nowhere to hide. All right? It says to drain away or bail up a liquid, make bare, clean, discover, draw out, take, uncover. So they're being uncovered. And Lord's will, we'll go back to it, but let's go to Isaiah 25. Because Esau's power outside of the sword is also deception. This is why, let's get one quick precept and we'll come right back to this. Let's go to, oh man. Shit, oh, Barak how about Shemal Shai? I thought it escaped me. 2 Corinthians 4:3. But if our gospel be hid, it is hid to them that are lost, in whom the God of this world hath blinded the minds of them which believe not. See, so the God of this world hid these things from the ones that are lost. So let's go to the word hid. Should be the same thing. Hid. Yep. Calypto. You also have the word crypt, to hide, veil, to hinder the knowledge of a thing. So why do the majority of Jakes out here, why are the majority of them in the mindset of the so-called Christians? Because through the deception of white supremacist Christianity after the Renaissance period, Esau he changed the gospel around. He rearranged it and put himself at the forefront of it and made the world believe that he is the Heavenly Father, that he is Yahushai, that he is the superior. He is the one that everyone should be bowing to. And this is why Jake, bows to these devils. This is why Moab and Ammon and Ishmael and all these other nations bow to this devil, because they look at him as being so-called Jesus, so-called God, but he's not. But that was his power of deception for a long time. This is why when we go to the book of Revelation, it's really Revelation, not Revelations. Some brothers say Revelation still, but it's all good. 13:3, it says, and I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death. When you go through this chapter, the 7 heads are the 7 major Edomite so-called European nations that have ruled the planet Earth, going back to the Greeks, the Romans, the French, the Spanish, Germania Major, Germania Minor, and Britain. These are the 7 major Edomite world powers. This is why Esau says civilization started with the Greeks. Let's see something. Let's see. Did civilization start with the Greeks? Let's see what it says. No, civilizations did not start with the Greeks. Okay? While ancient Greece is considered the cradle of Western civilization. See, this is the cradle of Western civilization. Beginning back then, they were on the west side, on the western half of the mass of land in the old world. But also that ideology or that foundation is also what America is built upon. That's why it says that America in Revelation 17 is built upon all 7 of those different nations, and America is the 8th, and it embodies all of those other 7 so-called European nations, which is really 6, but the Germania Major, Germania Minor, had a big portion of land, so they ruled in two spots. Okay, so America embodies all of those different, so-called European nations. Everything that you see about them in one way, fashion, or another, all goes back to those 7, right? So it says, while ancient Greece is considered the cradle of Western civilization, founding democracy, philosophy, theater, and significant older civilizations flourished thousands of years prior, such as the Mesopotamia, Sumer, Egypt, right? Because you had the flood, the earth, Eden, which you go back to the beginning of time, you have the word Eden, which is the whole earth, which is called Eden, which goes back to the Hebrew word Aidan, which means paradise or joy. Then you had the Garden of Eden, and then after the flood, because the world was all one at one point, you had something called Pangea, right? Pangea definition. For those of you that don't know, Pangea was a supercontinental that existed approximately this is bullshit, this part here, 3 to 200 million years ago, bullshit, straight up bullshit. But here you see supercontinental, meaning all the different continents merged together as one. Because the word pan is all, and Gea is where you get the word geo, which is earth. Pangea, all earth. Okay, so it was one big massive land. Because when you go back to the beginning, back in the beginning, you had the earth, which was one massive land, and we got to come back to this. It's Genesis 1. When you go to Genesis 1, and 9, and the power said, and the reason why I say powers is because this is not dealing with the Heavenly Father Yahweh, it's dealing with the angels, Yahweh Shai and the angels. When you look at this word God, the first letter capital and the rest of the letter small case, this is dealing with Yahweh Shai and the angels. When you go to the Hebrew, Alahayim, which means gods or judges, right? And the power said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land singular appear. And it was so. So the whole earth was one mass of land. All right, one great mass of land all together, Pangea. And we read that this is pretty much what David Rockefeller is trying to do, the supranational sovereignty of an intellectual elite and world bankers. So pretty much they want to unite the whole world as one under their control. And this is why they have the infrastructure of this digital system in place. So it says Pangea was a supercontinent that existed approximately, this is bullshit right here, uniting nearly all of Earth's land masses into a single massive continent surrounded by the Panthalassa Ocean, coined from Greek for all Earth. Yeah, that's what Pangea means. By Alfred Wegener in 1912. It represents the most recent stage of continental drift. So what happened? You know, that's it right there. All one. That's why when you look at a map today of the world, you see that all of these different continents merged together. So what happened? There was a great flood. You know, but prior to that great flood, there were civilizations prior to that thrived, that had, a civilization, so on and so forth. So, but what happened? When the flood came, the pressure from that flood and that water pushed the continents apart. And this is why you have the map the way it is today. You know, when you look at the world map, you see all of these different, all of these different continents pushed away from each other. Today they call them, 7 continents, you know? And then after the flood, when Noah's Ark landed on the mountains of Armenia, right? From there, Noah, his 3 sons, their 4 wives, and then they started having children. They started merging out. And then they ended up in the new cradle of civilization, which is over there in the middle, so-called, what they call the so-called Middle East, the Fertile Crescent. You have Babylon, Iraq, Iran, you have the plains of Shinar. You have what was known as Mesopotamia. I think it's the waters between 2 rivers or something like that, or land between 2 rivers. I believe it means something along those lines. So that's where civilization started again. That's where you had Sumer, you had Babylon, Iraq, you had Assyria, you had Egypt. So you had all these civilizations prior to Esau's civilization. So it didn't start with Esau, but this, this what we see today, in America is, foundationally back with the Greeks, all 7 of those major Edomite empires. The Greeks, the Romans, the French, the Spanish, Germania Major, Germania Minor, and Britain. And America is the 8th. So that's why they say that, So when you go back to Revelation 3:3, and I saw one of his heads as they were wounded to death, because that was the 7 heads, but one of the heads was wounded to death. What was this head? This was the Roman Empire, which was the second of these Edomite empires. And what happened? During the time of 96 AD, the last Edomite Roman emperor was Domitian. Then after that, you had a man by the name of Nerva who took over. This guy was, I believe either he was put to death or he committed suicide. I can't remember exactly if he committed suicide or they put him to death. Then Nerva, which was a Jake, he took over. So this is when this particular head was wounded. But it didn't really change guard, so to speak. The guard didn't change because what all Jake did was continue in that pagan Roman way. And it wasn't until Constantine that really Christianity started to be really introduced and accepted as a religion into, the Roman Empire. You see? And from that point on, that's really when the count for the 1,000 years begin. But Jake had power over Rome more than 1,000 years. So from that point on, Esau was not able they were not able to deceive the world. Esau went down to a very low state, as predicted, prophesied in the book of Genesis 3. Upon that belly shall thou go. They were going to be the lowest. That's why you have something called the wild moose or the wild man, which the first time I heard about that, I mean, I've seen movies where they show certain things, but you didn't put two and two together back then. But we knew about cavemen and all that. Well, this is Esau's history. And when you try to look up the history on the cavemen, they'll tell you billions of years ago, 10 billion BC or whatever the case may be, because this is a very devastating, shameful history of Esau that he really wished wasn't out there, because Esau has not contributed anything to the world except for death and destruction, murder, rape. You see, that's what they contributed to the world. They steal everybody's ideas. They take everybody's, they act like they're the civilized ones. They'll say that nothing was ever created by so-called brown people, the so-called black brown civilization. But that's not the case, because everything that he has in some form, shape, or another all goes back to Jake. The internet, for example, you have this individual by the name of Imagwali. Forget his first name. I'm not sure if Imagwali is his first name or his last name. I believe he's from Nigeria, if I'm not mistaken. He's the one that came up with the concept of the internet. And the reason why he came up with the concept of the internet was because he looked at a beehive, and he opened the beehive up and he started to study the beehive and all the interconnected, paths that it had. And it gave him the idea to create the same thing, which today they call the internet, which is everything woven together, this net woven together by all these different signals, and however the details go, So Esau was the wild man. Esau for 1,000 years was down. You have a picture known as a day in the king's court, right? Let's type in icon, see what comes up. I mean, I doubt if it's going to come up. And it shows you a picture. Oh, here it goes right here. Oh, Barakateh Al Shai. Bishop Tazadakba has this right here. A day in the king's court. And you can't really tell too good here. It's not a really great one, but you have Jakes that are judges, and you have Edomites being brought in for judgment. Now you have Jakes, dark-skinned, men. Look, this looks like it's been lightened up. This is bullshit. This is a bullshit one. This is some bullshit. This is some bullshit. The bullshit stops here, brother. The bullshit stops here. Inside joke. You want some Skittles? Yeah, that's not a very good one. There was an actual one, Bishop Taz. He actually has a copy of it. Let me see. That's the one we just looked at. And you can see, if you really look at it, you can kind of see that they kind of like painted over some of this. Because you see, these are afros. These are not bonnets. These are afros. But for some reason, they lightened up the faces. And they left these the way they are. And this was Esau. The reason why his shit is all matted up like this, his hair, because they were the wild men, wild wolves. And that's why they were getting judged. So during this period of the Middle Ages, Esau was in a low state. Esau was a heathen, a demon. That's why they were driven out from among men, as it states in Job, the 30th chapter. Damn, these fucking devils, man. I'm not sure if the Bishop Taz, is happen to be seeing this or watching this. If you ever to catch wind of it, that he actually has the actual picture, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and you could clearly see that they're Jakes. This is a black and white. It wasn't black and white, but yeah. See, they done changed this up. They done changed it up. See, this guy here leading the prisoners in, he got a big ass afro, but for some reason his face is a light. This guy here has a big afro. These judges here have afros, but for some reason they lighten their faces up. These fucking devils are too much, man. But this is what happens when a rat runs and tries to hide. A rat with an injured paw running and hiding. And I'm sure some of you other brothers, like maybe even Elder Malcolm, may have seen the actual picture of A Day in the King's Court, where they actually show you the Jakes that actually were leading Esau into captivity. This is a little better. See? This is the actual one. So how comes in this one here? Now check this devil out. Let's see. Okay, this one looks a little bit better. See the afros? You can see the wide noses, but you can kind of see that they lighten this up. See? Afros. This one, he looks, look at this one, and look at this one. You see how they try to lighten it up? This is a better one, but this one still looks like it might be. Look at Wawoos. Look at these devils being marched and paraded. And what do they have on their faces? Schnozzes. All right. Look at this demon right here. Look at this heathen demon. Look at this motherfucker right here. Look at his teethuses. Like he been eating bark, tree bark. And that's what they were eating, mallows, which is actually, mallows are actually good for you. Mallows, they help the digestive system. And I'm not a doctor, I'm not giving medical advice. I'm just sharing information. Mallow, marshmallow root, they actually give you, it's actually soothing to the lungs, because it has mucilage in it. And mucilage is like that sliminess that you get from okra, and it helps soothe the lungs. It helps soothe the respiratory system. It helps soothe the digestive system. It helps soothe the kidneys. Like I said, I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving medical advice. I'm just sharing some information. But you can see these demons all up and through here. And then it was Jake that was the bailiffs and all that, leading them to be charged. And here goes another devil here being charged for their crimes. And then you had Jakes that were the judges, and then you had the higher judges, which you can see they're Jakes, but it's kind of like, it's not really like, you can see they've been kind of whitewashed. Goddamn devils. So that was the, that was when Jake was in power during that 1,000-year period, what they call the Dark Ages. So, but then they say it was the Dark Ages because no real literature or art came through. Yeah, but they had a thriving community, So it says, and I saw one of his heads as it was wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. When was his deadly wound healed? During the time of the Renaissance period, right? You know what? I'm gonna, even though these are kind of a little jacked up, I'm gonna save it anyway. Let me just type in day Salakia in the King's Court. And I'm not sure what the name of this book is. I know that the Bishop Taz knows. I'm not sure if you was to go to the actual, if you will go to the actual page, if they would give you like, let's see, King's Court, you know. But that's when Esau was at his lowest. That's when Esau pretty much was serving out the prophecy of Genesis, the 3rd chapter. I believe is around the 15th verse. Upon thy belly shalt thou go, and thus shalt thou eat all the days of thy life, something like that. That was when they were pretty much in that stead. All right. So the deadly wound was healed during the time of the Renaissance period. Right. Let's go to all Renaissance. Period. Renaissance period. The Renaissance was a fervent rebirth. That's what the word Renaissance means. It's a Latin, French word, which means rebirth. Re is back. Naissance is where you get the word nacer in Spanish, you know, which is to be birthed or to be rebirthed. So what was it the rebirth of? It was the rebirth of Esau coming out of this stead, coming out of the wild woos, wild man, bugged out creature, you know, low in captivity, having the chain upon them, you know, not able to deceive anymore. You can see the shackles, you know, and Esau knows his history, you know, and this is why what's his name, Benjamin Franklin, said we're not going to have those swarthy, you know, Germans come over here or something like that. Elder Malcolm, you know, goes into that history a lot, you know. Bishop Taz, he is the expert, and so is Elder Malcolm, you know. So that's what the word rebirth means. It means that they came out of that condition and they were set free. They were set loose again, because that's what the prophecy stated. And from that point, when they were set loose, this is when they started to deceive the whole world. It says the Renaissance was a fervent rebirth of European culture, so-called European, which is really Edomite culture, art and science spanning the 14th to the 17th century. That's what at the height of it, you know, from the 1300s to the 1700s, which I believe is the 1600s, 13 to the 1600s, because the Renaissance really started in the 1300s, but it really didn't take root to like the mid to the late 1400s. That's really when the deception was at its highest, because prior to that, people knew that dark people were ruling. They weren't deceived. It wasn't until later on that the deception really started to take place. All right. It says bridging the Middle Ages and modernity. Originating in Florence, Italy, it emphasized humanism, exploring classical Greek and Roman philosophy, literature, and art. Key figures included Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and Shakespeare was a Jake. And innovation spreading across Europe. But what was the main thing they did? Something called iconoclasm. Now, iconoclasm, in the truest sense of the name or the label, is the, like when the Lord said, when you go to the Canaanites, destroy their idols, burn them, break them up. That's really the true meaning of iconoclasm. But the term itself means the defacing of images, right? And what Esau did, the way he defaced it, was he painted over the dark images. You know, he made them so-called white looking. Now, when you ask chat or you ask Google, they'll say that the reason why they did that was because they were painting pictures of themselves, you know, something that looks more like them. It wasn't really a deception. It was a deception, because they had, if you go into somebody's home and you see they have a bunch of pictures all around of themselves, and you go in there and you take those pictures and you change them and you put your face instead of their faces, that's deception, because that's not you. It's one thing to paint something and another thing to deface something, you know. Let me see, iconoclasm. Definition: the action of attacking or assertively rejecting cherished beliefs and institutions or established values and practices. The rejection or destruction of religious images as heretical the doctrine of iconoclasts, right? And they labeled them heretical because why? They were dark images, and they couldn't have that being venerated, and they're the ones in charge right now. You dig? Let's see. Let's get some images. Right here, they always show this picture. See? The repainting or rebranding of something. You know? Another term is whitewashing. Let me see. Another term is whitewashing. Let's see what comes up if we go to whitewashing. Whitewashing meaning definition. A solution of lime and water or whiting, size and water used for painting walls white, okay? A deliberate concealment of someone's mistake or faults in order to clear their name. Okay, so that's dealing with whiteout. A paint a wall, building a room, whitewash, deliberately attempt to conceal unpleasant or incriminating facts about someone or something. Yeah, and that's pretty much what they did. They whitewashed the true faces, you know, of the people that were there. Because you type in icon, Russian icons, all these different icons. What was I gonna put? And you'll see the true pictures of it. You'll see that they're dark-skinned people, whitewash in art, meaning. Whitewash in art refers to two distinct concepts: a technique using diluted white paint for highlighting or layering, right? That's one. And a controversial practice altering the racial identity of figures to favor white, Eurocentric, or dominant narratives. Come on, man. It involves erasing, altering, or misrepresenting the contributions of people of color in visual art, films, and media. Come on, man. Come on, man. You got it. See? So you got to ask the right questions. So through the Spirit, you know, we asking the right questions. So going back to Revelation 13:3, and I saw one of his heads that was wounded to death. That was after, you know, during the time of 96 AD, right? Jake took over into the medieval Europe. Then you had something known as the Renaissance period, and his deadly wound was healed. That's when the deadly wound was healed, because they were down. It seemed like they were dead, but then they resurfaced. It says, and all the world wondered after the beast. Why did the world wonder after the beast? Let's go to Revelation 20 now. Revelation 20:7. And when the 1,000 years are expired, this is the 1,000-year period from the time when they went down. You know, we usually calculate it from roughly around 325 AD, because that's when Jake started changing the pagan Roman practices and started, you know, accepting more, you know, Christian values, but they were still going off because they were still infusing paganism with so-called Christianity, you know. But that was roughly about a point, because 1,000 years into the future would put us in the 1300s, which is when the Renaissance began. But it didn't really didn't get its claws into the earth until around the 1350s. I'm sorry, to the 1400s, 1453, 1492, so on and so forth. That's really when the beginning of the height of the Renaissance period was taking place, right? And when the 1,000 years are expired, meaning when it was finished, when the wild goose was about to be let loose again, the wild goose on the loose. This is what happens if you let a madman loose. Shout out to the Bishop Manatazak, Bishop Manatazak, should I say. Satan shall be loosed out of his prison. So he was bound. His time, he did the crime and he did the time, and then he was loosed out of prison. And what's the first thing he did? And shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth. And this is exactly what they did. And through this deception that they brought upon the earth, this is also what's going to cause this great Third World War, because now we're at the point of exposing these devils. And while we're exposing these devils, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, the Lord is slowly but surely breaking them down, breaking that cover, that cheap veneer is breaking down. And he's being exposed. People are starting to see through the cracks. Says, oh, wait a minute, hold up, wait a minute. What do I see over there? Is that the wild wolves? You know? And then they started to be revealed, but not just being revealed as being the devil, being revealed as being the Edomites. This is why you have individuals out there in Christianity using talking points that we've used for years through the spirit, you know, and calling Esau for being Edomites, especially them small hats, the Rothschilds, you know, the shield of Edom and all that. What do you think he got them talking points from? He didn't sit down one day and, because look, let me tell you something, right? You ain't never heard, because I know I've never heard the name Esau or Edom ever in my life until the truth, until I went to One West, until I started studying at One West. I never ever in my life ever heard of the character Esau or the name Edom. Until that, I never heard of the book of Obadiah. None of that. Until One West. Since I was there, and prior to that, and even years later, you ain't never heard these Christians talk about Esau or Edom. It wasn't really until the YouTube era that they eventually started to talk about it. And now they're experts, tying the Edomites to, you know, to the Rothschilds and the small hats and all that. Come on, man. So that deception is over. You know, that enchantment is not working anymore. That spell that you had the people under is wearing off. And they're exposing you. And that's why you have whitewash in art refers to two distinct concepts: a technique using diluted white paint for highlighting or layering, and a controversial practice altering the racial identity of figures to favor white, Eurocentric, or dominant narratives. Notice it didn't say the opposite, to hide so-called white features, you know, make them more dark or make them darker. It was the other way around. Why? Because this is the devil that was loosed out of his prison, and this is one of the tactics he used to deceive the world. You see? Can't you see? It says it involves erasing, altering, or misrepresenting the contributions of people of color in visual art, films, and media. And this is why you have something called civilization started with the Greeks. No dark nations never contributed anything to civilization. We're the smartest. We got the highest IQ. You know, we've invented everything. If it wasn't for us, you'd still be you still be in the jungles of Africa or whatever. You still be, you know, throwing spears at each other. All this bullshit. We're the ones that civilize you hoes. Because look. In the day in the King's Court, look what the fuck you look like. Your hair was all matted up. You were through. And these are there's even worse than this. Because you had the wild wolves. Man, let me type it like this. See how it comes up. Wild wolves. The wild man. Let me try the wild man. There we go. Why you playing around? Just come out with it. You should be should be proud of your history. This is your legacy, homeboy. Look at this. This is your legacy. You were brought down to the level of a beast. Because on the planet Earth, out of all of the Heavenly Father's creation, you are the lowest of the low. You are the least common denominator. You have insects, you have amoebas, you have, you know, miniature size, you know, animals out there that have more purpose on the earth than you devils. It just shows you within the last 200 years, this devil has brought the earth to the brink of destruction, the brink of extinction. All the different dark nations that rule from the beginning of the earth till now never had the earth in the condition that you have it in. You give it to you now, and what you're doing? Destroying everything. You know? Having a place called, what is that? C to the answer, alley or something like that, out there in Memphis. That they call it. I was watching the up and coming elder, the priest, Salaki, brother, Yasha Muff from Mississippi, going into that. And all these different, I forget how many centers they're trying to open up all over America for this, this new data for the new world. Elon Musk, You're the one that destroyed the earth. This is why the earth is rising against you. That's why the people of the earth are rising against you. Because they're coming to the realization that their wine is wearing off, and they're coming to the realization of who the main culprit is that's causing all of this havoc and chaos and corruption and destruction and misery, on the planet Earth. It's you devils, you Edomites. So that's the wild man. There's many different pictures. It is also known as wild woos, All right, so now let's go back to Revelation 20 and 8, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are on the four corners of the earth. So your time was expired. You were loosed out of your prison. Let's look at this word loosed. And then I would like also to look, the word there for loose is lu'al. To loose any person or thing, tied or fastened, right? And how were they tied? Spiritually, they had a chain around them. When you read the first verse of Revelation 20, they had a spiritual chain around them that tied them to not being able to do anything. It was like they had a dark cloud over them that no matter what they did, they couldn't prosper. They couldn't get out of that situation or condition. Just like right now, we're under the chain of the curses. And no matter what, you're only going to prosper but so far. You only going to go so far. Because those curses that the Lord said they will follow us, overtake us. So there's only so far you're going to go. Now, are there exceptions to the rules? Of course. You have sellouts, like, my man, jumping into that Jeep, that expensive ass Jeep. Here it is, you sold your soul for that bullshit. The shit that depreciates as soon as you take it off the lot. Anyways, bandages of the feet, the shoes, husband, single, loose or one bound. To loose one bound, an example, to unbind, release from bonds, set free. Like the howling man. The howling man. Twilight Zone. Twilight. Oh, here we go. Just hit this one. Season 2, episode 5, I think it was. The Howling Man. See? And what was holding him in the prison? See, he was trying to get this guy to open the door. It was just a staff that was holding the prison. So really, the prison of Esau was really metaphorical. It wasn't an actual prison, but it was a sentence. It was a vibe. It was a spirit around them that they couldn't, prosper. They couldn't excel. They couldn't get out of that condition. Just like we can't get out of this condition until Yahushua comes back and frees us up. And there was only a staff, like a shepherd's staff, which would be a representation of, of the truth or prophecy or the word holding them back. And when the Lord pulled that veil off of them hoes, then they were able to be loosed and to go around and start, to cause havoc, to deceive the world, and use their sword to impose their will upon people that didn't want their will imposed upon them. And all this chaos these devils committed around the world. They went and conquered all these different lands. They conquered, China, and they conquered, Australia and Africa, and, and Americas and all that, right? And not once have they paid any reparations for any of that. But meanwhile, the so-called Haitians, the tribe of Levi, kicked the French's asses, kicked them out of the land, freed themselves, and then now they got to pay reparations to them because they lost all this stuff. But what about the shit that y'all did to us? Why didn't they counter sue them? Because we're under the curses. So Esau was under the curses at one time. Let's go to image and see what comes up. I want to see if they show a picture of the actual staff. That's the staff there, but there we go. Boom. See? It was an actual staff, a shepherd staff that was holding it. He said, all you got to do is pull it out. He said, why can't you pull it up? Because he couldn't get out of it. So the Lord had him, through. All right. Now let's go back. Of one bound up, swathed in bandages. See, bound with chains, a prisoner discharged from prison, let go. So they were discharged from prison, from that prison sentence. They were let go. And what did they do as soon as they were let go? Well, as the 8th verse says, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth. And when you look up the word deceive, it goes into the word planao. And it deceived all of the nations, planao, to cause astray, to lead astray, lead aside from the right way. And that's what they did. And this is why I said that the world wandered after the beast, to be led away into error and sin, to lead away from the truth. Yeah, and they also deceived the world through what? Through their imagery that they put up themselves. And when we go to Revelation 13, once again, and 3, and you go to the word wondered, it's like to be had like in a spell, in amazement. Thaumazo, to wonder at, marvel, to be wondered at, to be had in admiration. So this is why are they admiring Esau? Why are they doing that? Because the reason why they're admiring Esau is because he's painted himself up as being the Heavenly Father and his son, the angels and the Israelites. So everybody looks up to him. But they're under that spell because the God of this world has blinded the minds of them which believe not. All right, so that's what the word blind means when we went back to 2 Corinthians 10 and 4. Kalupto. Either 2 and 4 or 2 and 1. Kalupto. To hide, veil, to hinder the knowledge of a thing. Right, so that cheap veneer has been wiped away. Cheap veneer meaning. A cheap veneer, let's go back. A cheap veneer refers to a thin, low-cost layer of wood, plastic, or in dentistry, composite material applied over a cheaper base, like particle board or for teeth, a less durable surface to improve its appearance. It implies a superficial, sometimes deceptive look of quality, see? Furniture, dentistry. Okay, so let's see cheap veneer, meaning cheap veneer in art. Let's see what happens. In art and design, a cheap veneer refers to a thin, low-quality covering, often plastic paper or thin wood laminate applied over a cheaper, less stable surface, such as MDF or particle board. Yeah, to mimic a more expensive solid material, while the term veneer itself can refer to high-quality artistic wood applications. A cheap veneer implies a focus on cost-cutting over durability and craftsmanship, but it's pretty much a deception. Esau put the covering of the Most High and Yahushua, the angels on him, the Israelites on him, and everybody's giving him the credit for being that. But here the Spirit Lord has us going out there and saying, nope, he ain't the one. People are mad at us. Why? Because he's being revealed and they're still under that deception. So when we go to 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 and 3, says, let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come except there come a falling away first, which happened in 70 AD, and that man of sin be what? Revealed, the son of perdition. So these devils are being revealed by the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, which the word there is apocalypto, which is the Spanish way of saying the book of Revelation, Apocalypsis. You know, you also have a term called apocalypse, which is a revealing. APO, Apple, is to send, and Kalupto, which we just read, hidden or cover. So pretty much in this case is to take the cover off. This is what we were reading in, I don't think we got to it. Let me just bring it up before we go back. Isaiah 25 and 7. It says, and he will destroy. Who's the he? The Most High, Yahweh, Bashem Yahushai, will destroy in this mountain. What mountain? America. This the highest government on the planet that has been used to push the deception of the Renaissance, right? The face of the covering cast over all people. Because what is a face? The Hebrew word for face is panya, right? So the face is what? Is a representation. Here it says panyam, which is plural of faces. All right. It says face, faces, presence, person, face, as a dry, before, behind, formerly, in front of, the presence. So pretty much it's a representation. And that representation is what? Esau putting himself as, you know, the face of being the Israelites, as being the Most High, as being Yahushai, as being the angels, so on and so forth. So the Lord said he's going to destroy in this mountain the face of the covering cast over all people. That's why the world is still wondering after the beast, because there was a deception that was put upon them and the veil that is spread over all nations. So let's go to the word cast. I don't know if it's covering, cast. The word there is lawat, which means to wrap closely or tightly, and wrap, envelop. And how was that done? Through their deception, beginning in the Renaissance period, after Esau's, you know, after his prison sentence was up. And now the world is seeing who he really is. All right. So going back to reveal, apocalypto, right? To uncover, lay open what has been veiled or covered up. Disclosure, make bare. So there's a disclosure or disclose. Is the Esau is being made bare. He's being disclosed. All right. Matter of fact, do I still have that? Oh no, this is going back to Isaiah. I'm sorry, 2 Corinthians 4, which we're done with that. Okay, that's that. There was another. Okay, boom. We're gonna have to go back to that. All right. So there's a disclosure being made to make known, make manifest, disclose what before was unknown. See, so Esau's was being disclosed as what was unknown before, because since the Renaissance period, it's been hidden. And when these devils took over, the international bankers, they had bought, you know, the media, whether it was television, whether it was magazines, whether it was newspapers, so that they allowed them to see the plans of the future, but under the agreement of secrecy for almost 40 years. But now that the world has been pretty much asleep, now they can come up with their plans and show the world, because they've softened the blow by all these different years of predictive programming, or the revelation of the method, conditioning the minds of the people to accept their plans slowly but surely. All right. So it says, let no man deceive you, 2 Thessalonians 2 and 3. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man is seen be revealed, the son of perdition, who opposes and exalted himself above all that is called the Most High, or that is worshipped, so that he as the Most High sitteth in the temple of the Most High, showing himself that he is the Most High. So here it is. Who, when you type in, you could go to Google and type in Jesus, right? So-called. His name is Yahweh Shai. Boom. What's going to come up? Let's go to images. Boom. Esau, the Renaissance Jesus, right? Type in God, so-called, right? What do you see? Renaissance God, so-called. So this is the face that has been put on the world. And on top of the revealing, it's not just this. This is like the main part of it, but the revealing part also goes into all of the underhanded, wicked shit that these devils have been doing behind the scenes. And that's why they killed Stanley Kubrick, because he was revealing too much. See? And the world wasn't ready for that. But now, a lot of shit's coming out, and they already got the world where they want it, in a corner. So all they got to do now is fully get this whole system in place, and they don't give a damn what people know. All right, so let's go back. So it says, verse 5, remember ye not that when I was yet with you, I told you these things, and now you know what withholdeth, that he may be revealed in his time, because it wasn't time for these devils to be revealed 2,000 years ago. Only so much was going to come out back then. But we're at the point now that the full revelation is coming out. It says, for the mystery of iniquity doth already work, because the Roman Empire was a part of this mystery. But there was a point not too long after this that they were going to be knocked down. They were going to, be taken out of power and eventually come back again in the future. And in the future, when they came back during the Renaissance period, this was a time to reveal them once they got, their claws on the whole world. Only he who now letteth will let until he be taken out of the way. So the Lord allowed them to do their thing until a certain time, because there was a certain day where the revelation was going to start happening, so that the Lord could get ready to take them down, because that's the first step of bringing this devil down. And then shall that wicked be revealed. Why? When the time is right. Wake not my love to thee, please. So the time was right during the time of Elder Abba Bivens. Prior to that, you had a lot of Israelites back then that were revealing this devil to a certain degree, but not like with the Elder Abba Bivens and the One West, teachers, our elders back then, all the way to the present. It says, and then shall that wicked be revealed, whom the Lord Yahweh B'Shem Shai shall consume with the spirit of his mouth. So the Lord Yahweh B'Shem Shai is consuming them with the spirit of his mouth, which are the words that are written in this Bible, being taught and brought out to light by his prophets. Great millstone. You have other camps that bring out a lot of information on these devils, but they're not coming all the way. They're not coming 100%. They're not coming with the main thing that these devils are pushing, which is the MOTB, which is the microseer. All right. It says, and so once he's revealed, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming, because the first step is revelation. Second step is destruction. The judgment is coming. It says, even him who's coming is after the working of Satan with all power and signs and lying wonders. And we're seeing even more now of these of this power, signs, and lying wonders, which you didn't know a whole lot about this back in the 90s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s. 2010, you started seeing certain things. 2020, certain things started coming up. But now, the technology is through the roof, and you're starting to see how they're going to deceive the world into receiving this MOTB. So pretty much, this devil is being revealed, and they don't like it. This is why you had that individual, I forgot what his name was, saying that they have, these different agents, 24/7 going around checking people's, the different social media platforms out there, different, protests and all that, to see what they say, because they're about to make a move on truth. They're about to make a move on the people of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, which are the Israelites, but they're also going to make a move on truth. And they're going to, make it a crime to speak against them. They're going to make it a crime by penalties of fine or by penalties of deletion. It's going to get bad. So Habakkuk 2:16, thou art filled with shame for glory. And people are starting to see that shame. And they're starting to witness all of the horrific shit that these devils are doing. Drink thou also, and let thy foreskin be uncovered, because you're going to be what? Made naked. The cup of the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahushai's right hand shall be turned unto thee, and shameful spewing shall be on thy glory. Through all of these revelations, through all of these different platforms that are revealing this devil and his shame. So going back to Jeremiah 49:10, but I have made Esau bare. So this is also talking about making them bare as far as exposing them. The word kashap means, if we go down here, generally to make naked for exertion or in disgrace. And they're being disgraced. And that's why you have these devils jumping up, talking about that they're watching everybody. So anything that's unfavorable to them, no matter how wicked they are, they're going to demonize it. Here it is, they're the demons, but they're going to demonize you for exposing it. But it's too late, as the name of the title is. He is made bare and cannot hide himself anymore. So with that, I pray that you brothers and few sisters have been edified. Till the next time I say, Shalom.